Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're not just talking about a band. We're talking about, architects. For 3 decades, Blink-182 didn't just play pop punk. They built it. They designed a blueprint for the entire genre. So, let's get into how they pulled it off.
We're going to dig into how they literally built a whole genre from scratch, how they navigated a massive fracture that almost destroyed everything, and how they, in the end, cemented a legacy that is still shaping music today.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to track their story across 6 key chapters: the rise, the big changes, the collapse, the shaky reunion, and finally, their rebirth and legacy.
Okay, let's kick things off at the very beginning. This wasn't a story that came from gritty city streets. Nope, this was born out of the sun-drenched suburbs and skate parks of Southern California.
Yeah, so those early years were just a total whirlwind. Tom and Mark bonded over bands like The Descendants in Tom's garage, and from there, they just built this loyal following, one sweaty, chaotic show at a time. Their sound was raw, their energy was off the charts, and this was not some manufactured boy band. This was the real deal, pure, grassroots, fast-paced passion.
And then, damn, it happened. Can you believe it? That iconic riff, the one that perfectly captured all that growing up as weird angst, was written on a beat-up guitar that didn't even have all its strings. This one song was the spark that lit the fuse, launching them from local dive bars straight to a major label and a platinum record.
But look, that initial success, that was just laying the foundation. The whole project was about to get a massive upgrade, thanks to 2 new guys who would help them engineer a sound that would take over the world.
Enter Travis Barker. And let me tell you, this was an absolute game changer. Fresh off the road with the Aquabats, he wasn't just a replacement. He was a total engine upgrade. I mean, learning a 20-song set in 45 minutes? That's just insane. He brought in all these different influences, from jazz to hip-hop, and just injected this incredible new level of power into the band. And you could hear the difference immediately. It was huge. Barker was so technically skilled that Tom and Mark literally had to become better musicians just to keep up with him. He was the high-performance engine they needed to turn that raw skate punk energy into something way more dynamic, powerful, and ready for the mainstream.
15 million albums sold. Just let that number sink in. That kind of staggering success wasn't just because of their new drummer, as amazing as he was. It was engineered by their second key addition, the legendary producer, Jerry Finn.
And this is where we get into the secret sauce. Jerry Finn was basically the 4th member of the band in the studio. He took their raw sound and sculpted it into something huge, but also clean. Instead of just a wall of noise, you could actually hear everything perfectly. The punchy kick drum, the clear bass lines, those massive layered guitars, and boom, that sound, that became the blueprint for pop punk for the next decade. Seriously.
So, they're on top of the world, right? Biggest band around. But you know how these stories go. Right at their absolute peak, the foundation started to crack. The creative pressure started to build, especially for Tom DeLonge, who began to feel kind of trapped by the very sound that had made them famous.
And this side project right here was a huge, huge deal. Boxcar Racer was Tom's outlet for darker, heavier ideas. The big problem? He didn't include Mark, and Mark felt completely betrayed. This wasn't just a side gig, it was a line in the sand, and it created this deep wound that just wouldn't heal for years.
You can really see the split clear as day when you just look at the music itself. They went from singing about parties and prank calls to anxiety and divorce. That creative tension fueled their 2003 self-titled album, which is an amazing record, by the way. But it was also the very thing that blew the band apart, leading to their first big breakup in 2005.
So the band splits. Years go by. Tom's off doing his space rock thing with Angels and Airwaves, while Mark and Travis form Plus 44. And honestly, it really looked like it was over for good. But then, tragedy struck. Twice. And it took 2 absolutely devastating events to get them all back in the same room.
First, they lost their friend and producer, Jerry Finn. And then the unthinkable happened. Travis was in a horrific plane crash and was one of only 2 survivors. These back-to-back tragedies were just a brutal wake-up call. Suddenly, all that band drama and bitterness, it just seemed so small, so pointless. It basically forced them to start talking to each other again.
And then they just walk out on stage at the Grammys and drop this bombshell. But things weren't all fixed, not by a long shot. The reunion was super fragile. They made a new album, Neighborhoods, but they weren't even in the same studio for most of it. They were literally emailing song parts back and forth. That tells you everything you need to know about where they were at.
So it's no surprise that Fragile Reunion didn't last. The band fractured again, pretty messily, in 2015. But almost a decade later, a life-changing health crisis would finally be the thing that healed the deepest wounds, for good this time. Now, after Tom left again, the band actually kept going with Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio, and they made a couple of great records. But it was Mark Hoppus' battle with stage 4 lymphoma in 2021 that became the powerful, unexpected event that finally brought the classic lineup back together. I mean, Tom said it himself. Mark's illness became their North Star. It wasn't about money or fame or old arguments anymore. It was about friendship. It was about showing up for their brother. It gave them a real, powerful reason to be a band again.
And this comeback was so much more than just a reunion tour. Mark's vocal cords were wrecked from chemo. He had to physically relearn how to play bass and sing again. I mean, just think about that for a second. So for them to come back from all of that and drop a #1 album, it's just an absolutely incredible story of recovery and resilience.
So that brings us to today, to this final chapter. And their legacy? Well, it's so much bigger than just the music. They really have cemented their status as the architects of an entire culture.
And if you were around in the early 2000s, you remember all this. Atticus, Famous Stars and Straps. This wasn't just merch. This was an entire lifestyle empire. These brands were the look. They defined the whole mall punk aesthetic for a generation of kids.
And now things have really come full circle. Travis Barker has basically become the godfather of the modern pop-punk revival. He's producing all these new artists, from Machine Gun Kelly to Willow Smith, and he's using that classic Blink sound as the blueprint, bringing the genre he helped build to a whole new generation.
So when you step back and look at the whole 30-year journey, from a garage in the suburbs to selling out stadiums across the globe, their story is one of construction, fracture, and ultimately reconstruction. It proves that a band's architecture, its sound, its friendships, its cultural impact can be broken. But if the foundation is strong enough, it can always be rebuilt, sometimes stronger than ever before.